Okay, guys, this is going to be my review of the movie Castaway. And I really enjoyed this film. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this film, considering it was, taking a guy and literally putting him on an island and having to struggle to survive. And what I think this proved to me the most, not proved, but validated the most, because I already suspected this and knew this, but what it validated the most was how great of an actor Tom Hanks was. Because this film, he was this film. He was this film. Because you could have stranded anybody on this island and it would have failed. Because there's no other actors. There's really no plot as terms of him being stranded on the island beyond having him survive and get off the island. So what had to happen was whoever stranded this in, whatever actor you chose to get put on this island and struggle to survive, had to sell that it was a struggle and had to sell the pain, the suffering, to make simple acts like catching a fish, like making fire. And again, nothing simple about making fire and catching fish, but I'm saying make acts that otherwise would seem boring to just watch, but make them feel entertaining by showing how he's struggling to do these things, struggling to cope, struggling to survive. And all of this happens by the performance. Because I love when movies don't show, but tell. Tom Hanks never says these following words: determination, gut, struggle, pain, suffering. He never says any of that. He shows how determined he is. He shows how he's suffering. He shows how he's struggling. And I think that comes down to his performance, because that's all there is to this film. But that's what makes it so great. This is like the ultimate test of how great an actor can be. Is, can you put them in an island and try to get to an audience member that is struggling? And another thing he did is great is really show the relationship between him and the volleyball Wilson. And when Wilson, was left the boat and was left to sea, that made me really sad. Oh, sometimes even more sadder. I'm saying sadder is not really a word, but just more, maybe more sad than some even movie deaths. And Wilson's not a person. It comes down to Tom Hanks' relationship with it. Again, coming down to his performance. Simple things like simple scenes of just him making a fire get sold so great. And it becomes so entertaining because you see him struggling. You see him, coping with the heat and coping with the wind and his with his tone when he speaks. And again, it's not a dialogue heavy film. It comes down to his facial expressions, his movements, his different scenes, and again that face acting, the body acting, and and just the acting, and even when he does speak, his tone of saying Wilson. And so I think he sells it through those different methods and through those different ways. And again, there's some great other sequences in this film. I love when he tries to escape, and he has to first escape when he's on the yellow raft, or when I love the scene when the plane first crashes, where it's like he's looking at his finger, and then all of a sudden that's what starts, and it's so sudden, and the effects maybe a little bit is outdated. There's some scenes where I'm like, oh, okay, that's clear CGI, but it was great. I love that. I love the great some of these great moments of directing from Robert Zemeckis too, where it's like it's spot on with the directing as well. I think especially with stuff like the first crash, and he's on the raft, and he's sinking, and he loses the emergency stuff, and he has just in the waves and the storm, and how it constantly flashes to light or flashes dark, and then back to the storming sea, and you hear the storm in the background. And I love the opening where it's like you see a first person point of view of the FedEx packages. But I think another thing is the ending. I didn't fully get the ending. As far as what was the message. And it was very odd. because I really enjoyed the dynamic of he's gone for 4 years. People thought he was dead. He has comes back and is struggling to get used to it. He's struggling to cope with the idea that his wife's moved on, and I got all that stuff. But then when you met the wife was so open to like go back to him, then didn't. Then you had to. But what made it so weird was, okay, he came back. Good for you, Tom Hanks. Then he, goes to someone else's house and talks about how he wanted to kill himself, but then he started to realize the true message of life, but they never really said what it was. I'm assuming again, interpretation. I hate when films make you really assume and interpret, on such a level like that. But I'm guessing the message was this idea of, him with FedEx and time and whatnot, is to deliver people what they want. And if you staying on this earth and keep breathing and not giving up hope, because I love, these different hope and redemption films and whatnot. But again, I guess this idea of like, don't give up hope and keep breathing, keep staying alive, because you staying alive will help and better, other people as, you're deliver packages. By delivering packages, you can bring joy to other people's lives. And so this idea of you making a difference in how important your job is, I guess, and where it ends with he's giving a package that saved his life. And I think metaphorically and really, where it's like it saved his life by not just that package, but I'm assuming all the packages, of having this package and being able to give you this and bring you joy is my purpose in life, because part of it was finding his purpose beyond, being with, his wife, Kelly, that he knew he, couldn't be with. He had to find something else. He had to, because like his whole motivation for getting off the island was to be with Kelly, and he had to find a new message. And then he realized his new purpose had to have been to deliver packages. And again, that's just my interpretation. It could be totally off, could be totally on point. I don't know. Because this film, I felt like very much ended, open-ended or whatever. But I think, like, I was really entertained, and I was surprised. I was really entertained by, like, again, the plane crashing and the great directing and cinematography, and again, the performance by Tom Hanks, even in these different action sequences. And then, of course, him escaping, and the deep, sad scenes with him, and losing Wilson was, like, again, heart-wrenching. And I think the stuff with I like the opening with again, like the shots with, like, you see the first person point of view of the FedEx package, which was pretty crazy. And I was like, right from that opening sequence, I was like, someone great had to have been the director on this. And sure enough, it was Robert Zemeckis, the guy behind Forrest Gump and Back to the Future trilogy. But again, like, the directing was great. Again, Tom Hanks was this film with this performance, because it's literally just him, and he had to sell the suffering and sell the pain and sell the idea of him determined to get off. And I love that they don't gloss over things. There's not real montage sequence. Like, yes, there's the 4 year time jump, but it all made sense. It all played together. It all played to its strengths and its necessity to be there. And so I really enjoyed this film. I think while some of the stuff I got bored at a little bit, and I was surprised that they glanced over him getting back to the boat. Because, like, okay, you see him with the boat, then they cut to, like, okay, he's safe, and then they had another time jump 4 weeks later. So I think, like, they glossed over that a little bit. But again, this was a long film. It was 2 hours, 24 minutes. So I get why they couldn't show every little detail of him reviving, coming home and whatnot. But I really enjoyed this film. I think while it's a great film, it's not wildly entertaining or anything, because again, it is just Tom Hanks being stranded on the island. But I was surprised how entertaining, because I was thinking, like, yeah, how entertaining can it really be? And then you're like, okay, it's actually pretty entertaining. And it's in the middle of my quarantine list, but that just goes to show not how that I don't like this film, but how great of films I've been choosing to watch. Because I could have watched Aliens 3 or Jaws 2 or the Matrix sequels, but I'm really choosing to just watch what is highly regarded films. And it doesn't mean I like them. And not every film I chose to watch were highly regarded, because some of them I was like, oh, someone recommended it, or I wanted to try it, seemed too intriguing. But relatively speaking, I wanted to pick films that were highly regarded, and so I knew that. Despite Matrix being in a trilogy, it was like, well, that's the best film, and I don't want to waste my time watching films that I'm not gonna say I already know I don't like, but films that are highly regarded and boredom, or not boredom, but like not highly regarded, I should say, really, would be the right choice of words. But anyways, stay tuned for videos coming at you.